Hey, if you're thinking, I barely have time to write, let alone start a podcast, I got you. My Start Your Author podcast checklist helps busy writers like you start a podcast without sacrificing your writing time. No more guessing or Googling. Starting is actually the easiest part of podcasting. And with this step-by-step checklist, you can fit it in over the next 6 weeks or even next weekend. Stop letting uncertainty hold you back. Grab your free checklist at the link below and get on your way to serving your target readers today. With Memorial Day upon us, we're reminded of the brave men and women from the U.S. who gave their greatest sacrifice while serving our country. So I wanted to share a conversation I had with my sweet friend, Kristi Woods, author of 101 Prayers for Military Wives. I think this is so important, not just at Memorial Day or even Veterans Day, but really all year long. These wives need our prayers and support. Kristi shares what might surprise us about the day-to-day lives of military spouses, why prayer is so important for military wives all year long, practical ways we can help support military families in our community, and of course, how she's marketing her book to get it in the hands of who God called her to write it for. Her book is absolutely stunning, y'all. I just love that it's this small, precious book full of impactful prayers that you could toss in your purse to say the prayers yourself or be ready at a moment's notice to gift it to others. So keep in mind, you never know if you have military families listening in your audience, and they will be so happy to hear about this book if you might consider sharing it with your listeners or just find ways that you can pray for families as well. You're in for a treat today with Kristi, so let's get to it. Hey, Kristi, welcome to Book Marketing Mania. I am so thrilled you're here today.
Oh, Kim, thank you so much for the invite. I'm excited to be here and to serve your listeners. It's a great day.
Oh, it is so much. So let's just dive in, Kristi. I know, some people may know you because you've been around the writing world for a long time and, may know you as a writer and a blogger, but they don't realize a big, huge piece of your story is that you yourself have been a military wife for many, many years. And can you just kind of give us a little glimpse of what that entails to be a military wife and a little bit, about your family and your story?
Absolutely. 19 years. That's how many,
Wow.
That's how long I walked alongside my husband. He was in for 24 and a half before he retired, but we were not together for the first part of it, but we were Desert Storm pen pals.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's how we came together. And then a little bit after that, there was some reservist time and then back in as active duty. But as a wife, that life looks very different than a civilian wife. And I've just started off with this. Like sometimes there'll be comments of, oh, my husband's going to be gone for a night or two. I don't know how I'm going to handle it. And I don't mean that to belittle anybody.
Right.
Because that's a big deal for a lot of people.
Yes.
The military wife will hear that though and go, oh, my word, try 10 months.
Yeah.
Because that's our life, is that we do a lot of what I call pseudo single parenting, where we're by ourselves, either with or without kids, depending on our situation, but pseudo single parenting if we have children, and a lot of decisions that we have to make on our own. Simple things like bills really need to be put in our names so that we can make things happen while he is gone, or in both names, things like that. And the wife has to be ready to pick up and move at the drop of a hat. We were about every 3 years, but I had friends that were every 18 months.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, right.
That's a lot. Yeah.
It is. It is. Especially like I took 3 months to unpack.
Yeah.
So you get streamlined and you learn that you really don't want a lot of stuff because it just makes life harder. Yeah. It's a little more streamlined the lighter it is. So, but the great part is that you get to go and experience new places, new people, and even within the United States alone, new cultures.
Yeah.
We found that in different parts, like, for instance, Virginia. We were stationed in the Hampton Roads area, which is Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, Norfolk. We ended up moving south into North Carolina because the big real estate bubble at the time was growing, and that's what we could afford. And that state line was a line.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right?
See, I have no idea. Coming from Texas, I know nothing about that.
Right, it was crazy. There was just a different mindset, there was a different way that they called certain little things and a different pace of life, and it was just very different, and we found that with a variety of our moves, and the great part of that is that it opens you up to a little more exposure to life, to new people, to, new c well, I call them cultures, but traditions,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
um, and it's really it's hard, a hard life, but it
Mhm.
can be a really great adventurous life, and in the mix of all of that, hopefully then is the Lord, and
Mhm.
that he, will show he showed us different churches, and each one had its strengths, which was great and fed into us in a different way, and, all of that then went with us. So the friends, we kept many of those friends over the years. In fact, many of them were at my daughter's wedding this summer,
Uh-huh.
and they came from all over the United States. They were our family.
Wow. Oh, yeah, yeah. That's what
Yeah.
I was thinking is you're probably really far from were you ever close to your family when you were stationed
No,
at different places? Yeah, that's gotta be so
never.
hard, yeah.
Yeah, we never were, and they do become your family, and you hit the ground running very fast. You learn to make friends fast, you learn to find dentists and doctors and mechanics fast, and, you just your life is fast and an open book, and it's quick,
Mhm.
and it's a good thing, actually. It was harder coming back to a civilian world where that wasn't the case. I was like, "Wow, why isn't anybody out? Why aren't we talking?"
Uh-huh.
So it has a lot of great positives to it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And I was just thinking, you talking about the number of years y'all were in the military that,
Mm.
so much has changed with technology. I imagine probably when y'all first started out, you probably didn't even get to talk to your husband very often, right?
Right. Okay, get this. So he went through the Panama Canal at one point, and they have video cameras that
Uh-huh.
down there that you can watch online. And but it was dial up, so
Oh,
you
wow.
heard that old
Yeah.
sound.
Uh-huh.
And so I spent all day watching for my husband's ship on these little bleeps that just kept jumping because
Ugh.
it's not steady stream.
Uh-huh.
And, just to get a sight of his ship. And I eventually did, but yeah, like, an email was once or twice a week at the most and,
Mhm.
dial up. So that says enough right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Gosh. Oh, I just can't even imagine. I haven't lived the military life by any means, but I would love for you to just share with us. I know the biggest way we can support them is through prayer. And your
Mhm.
book, Christy, is, I know it was written for, these are prayers for military wives to read. But when I was reading through them, I was like, no, these are prayers that I need to be praying for military wives as well. So let's talk a little bit about that because prayer is such an important part of your ministry. I know and you're such a prayer warrior. And I just love to just hear from you, Christy, to share, why do you think, I mean, it sounds like a silly question, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you think it's so important for us to be praying for military wives?
Oh, absolutely, because, there's a lot of times military wives are very quiet about their struggles.
Hmm.
There's a fallacy that military wives can handle the weight of the world
Yeah.
all while doing ten other things, but that fallacy often gets bought into, and I was one of those. I bought into it, and when I did come crashing down, I thought I was the only military wife in history that couldn't
Yeah.
make it, because all these other women were strong and they could do it. But what I found out later and through conversations was that many of my friends had hit some really low points as well. Just nobody talked about it. And
Hmm.
so we started to talk about it. And so with our community supporting through prayer, that's helping the hearts and the mental health and, just the everyday life of that military wife because, we don't war against flesh and blood, right? It's
Hmm.
against principalities and all the things of this dark world. And so by having people on our team praying for us as military wives, what a powerhouse that is because it's
Hmm.
Almighty God ultimately that's behind all of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure. And I think, I could just see too, like, depending on where you're living amongst strangers, like when you first relocate, you may not know anybody as well as, the spouse that is deployed. You may not have any brothers and sisters in Christ, you're right, in your community at that moment. And so it's nice to be able to surround other people with prayers and be able to know what to pray for yourself even. I mean, I think that's going to be so helpful for this book. Well, let's talk about some practical ways because like I was telling you, Kristi, before we hit record, like, I think about the military and, with Veterans Day coming up, I think about that. And, you want to do things to support our troops, but I think we just don't always know what to do other than if you see somebody doing something and you can just kind of join in. So I'd love for you to share, just some practical ways that we can reach out to military families in our community.
Yes, there are a variety. We were very fortunate that we always had somebody from the community reach out to us, and they are lifelong friends now. They're still part of our lives, and that was with each move. And so reach out. That's the first one. Is if you are in an area where there are reservists that are being recalled, which doesn't mean that they necessarily have to be near a military base. It's happening here around me.
Hey, how
I
would you know that, Kristi?
Well, yeah. So I think prayer, maybe Lord lead me to that person or bring that person to me. And also just sharing how I want to pray for military wives. Do you know of anybody that I
Okay.
can? I actually posted about my book in a Facebook group here in my local area. It was a mom's group.
Uh-huh.
And I had somebody reach out to me who said, there's a woman that's in our church and her husband's deploying, and we don't know how to support her. We don't know what
Yeah.
she needs, how to help her. What can we do? And so we got her a copy of the book, and she actually gave, I think, her copy to the woman in the church to support her. But I would encourage, folks to grab the book and then to read through the prayers, to pray
Mhm.
them, but also to pay attention to, okay, what are these needs? Because many of those were birthed from needs of my own
Uh-huh.
or people that I know. So it kind of gives you a little trail of the needs. It may be fixing dinner because
Uh-huh.
you get really tired. Maybe
Yeah.
buying a package of paper plates so that they don't have to do dishes.
Uh-huh.
It may be mowing their lawn, offering to mow their lawn. We're coming up on the holidays. We had a beautiful couple in our church in North Carolina that came over one afternoon, and he played with the kids while she and I and the older one of the kids, I don't remember, but anyway, while we decorated the Christmas tree.
Uh-huh.
Because I had 3 littles and they were
Yeah.
little, and, not everybody is, like, super gifted with little kids, and I was
Yes.
one of those that wasn't, so it was a struggle for me. So
Uh-huh.
having them come to help was immense. And then we had others that we were in a small group with, and they would have dinner regularly, and we'd go sit at their table and just join them, and that meant the world, and just simple little things. If I needed something done around the house, they would come and help.
Uh-huh.
When our youngest was born, my husband was deployed, and we had one wife who went to the hospital. She and her husband went to the hospital with me. She stayed all night, and then she went into the OR with me the next day because my
Oh,
husband couldn't be there.
wow.
And she was blessed because she had 3 kids of her own, but she never watched a birth.
Oh,
So she
wow.
got to watch Caleb,
Oh, that's
you know,
incredible. Yeah.
Yes. So it was that, and then we had another friend drive us, go with me to the hospital, but I was a typical, stubborn military wife. I drove
Uh-huh.
myself. She sat in the
Yeah.
passenger seat, I'm sure white knuckling it the whole way. But, and then her daughter watched our kids overnight along with another young woman. So, they just rallied. So practical things. Think food, think grocery trips with kids, doctor visits. A
Uh-huh.
lot of times, believe it or not, with the military, they say no kids at your appointments. Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
didn't just trust just anybody with my kids. So, that was always a little bit, interesting trying to figure out. But the lady who was in the OR offered to keep our oldest one while I went to appointments for when I was pregnant with our second one.
Uh-huh.
And so she just kept him. They fed ducks, they did games, they played, whatever, while I was at appointments, and it helped.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I would have no idea that you couldn't take. I mean, I think just yeah, for us civilians, we probably think, oh yeah, I don't want to take the kids to the doctor. But yeah, being able to being told you really can't, you need to
Yeah.
figure out a different solution. I mean, that would be great to be able to offer that.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And just yeah, all the meals and that's what I think about too. Like yeah, taking care of your house. I mean, just all the things that you think
Mhm.
in a typical marriage, that you share the responsibilities, and I'm sure there's lots of
Yeah,
them that are singles as well, and that's even harder as single moms and single dads. Period.
for
But
sure.
then, yeah, being away from your family and Yeah, I think there's just so many things. I've often thought, like, I think it would be really cool, and there's probably some organization out there somewhere, but I always think about like when, tragedies happen in a certain area, or especially like people being deployed. Like, I just always think, okay, well, God didn't call me to that, but He gave me other gifts. And how could I figure out? Like almost like this domino effect, like, okay, you've been called to serve, you go serve and, protect our country. But then what gifts can I give to help your family that is behind? You know what I mean? Like you do still have
Mhm,
this family behind that needs tons and tons of support. And I think that would,
mhm,
yeah, there's just so many ways. So I appreciate you sharing those practical ways, especially like, if you are in a church family, just reaching out to your church because they probably do know of some people that have gotten
mhm.
called up because we wouldn't always know that. Like you say, if we don't live near a military base, if we do live near a military base, what would you suggest there?
There's always chaplains that you can get in touch with at the base. I'm sure if you live near one, then you probably know how to get a hold of those people. If not, then any active duty member can usually put you in touch with a chaplain. In fact, I'm doing that right now, and this is another practical way, but I had an anonymous donor give quite a few books free, in memory of a family member of theirs that was active duty.
Oh,
And then also, she also said that she wanted it in honor of those who are serving currently as well. And so I'm in touch with chaplains from all the different branches to try to ship these to them so then they can then pass them out to the women that they think it would be a good resource for. So, chaplains are an excellent place to start. There's also military missionaries. So
uh-huh.
Crew has their own
Yeah.
branch of military missionaries, and I've been in touch with several of them actually just, kind of chatting about needs and things of that sort. So, I'm sure that I don't know if they can give them out, but I know that they might be able to help direct you if not. And there are other branches that have missionaries for the military as well.
Okay.
I'm just familiar with Crew myself, but I know
Uh-huh.
that there's others as well.
Yeah, yeah, we're for real familiar as supporters of crew, but I didn't know they had a military division, so
Hmm.
that's wonderful. Well, let me ask before I switch gears on you, Christy. So I know, like we talked about some of the practical ways to help and some of the things that you went through, with your husband being deployed and raising a family, but also because this was another thing that's totally new to me is just that when you get ready to retire and transition out of military life, just what a huge change that, like, anybody retiring from any job is huge, right? But for a military servicemen and servicewomen and their spouses and families, it's really a much bigger transition. So can you kind of talk about that, because I think that's definitely an area that is new to me, and it's certainly an area we need to be praying for. So it's like, we do have servicemen going and deploying, but we also need to think about the ones that are coming home and ending that career, and what a big change it is.
Absolutely, because there's two kinds of people that retire that I can just think of off the top of my head. One, the ones that want to and they're ready and they've chosen this, and then the others that are told they have to.
Hmm.
So sometimes you're going willingly, and other times not so much. So there's both sides on that. But also, you're leaving a community that you've known for at least 20 years, probably more. In our case, it was 24 and a half. And you're used to moving every 3 years in our case, or 18 months in some of my friends' case, or, it can kind of vary, but that
Hmm.
gives you an idea. And so there's kind of an internal clock within you that's like, got to move every 3 years, got to move, got to move, got to move. And suddenly pump the brakes on that. Okay. Wow, this feels different. I'm suddenly not moving at the 3 year mark. And then there's just the simple thing of that being your lifestyle. We were getting our ID cards, came down off of the elevator. I turned and looked, and there was the uniform shop and all the uniforms. Did not expect it, but wow, a wave of tears hit because I was
Yeah.
like, this is no longer our life. So I
Uh-huh.
think we have to be really careful that it's not our identity.
Uh-huh.
That's still in Christ, and it's okay that we can find our gratitude and move forward. But there is a grieving process, and it just takes time that you have to work through it. And for some people as well, there's a financial concern because that retirement pay doesn't kick in right away.
Uh-huh.
It can take a month or 2 months or 3 months to kick in. It's been varying here lately. We were fortunate ours kicked in pretty simply, but there's been some hiccups lately. So, there's the added stress of that. And because it's retirement, many members still have to get a job afterwards to make ends meet. So then there's the stress of finding, that career, how it transitions into the civilian world, or does it? We were fortunate that my husband's did, but not everybody's does. So they have to kind of then reinvent themselves, so to speak, and head down a new path. And it's really important that the couple is really unified during this time because I don't know the stats, but I can just tell you of my friends, divorce knocks on the door at retirement time. So you have to really be cognizant of that and planning ahead as best you can, and keeping the Lord at the center.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's great advice. And I know I can imagine, like, even just like coming home from the deployments, but also the retirement is, just all of a sudden, if it is a married couple, parents, like all of a sudden now there's two in the home where I can imagine that causes a lot of tension when you're like, you alluded to it a little bit earlier. When you're not used to, you're used to juggling everything on your own and being the responsible decision maker for everything. Right. And then all of a sudden now you've got this other person that comes in and, maybe they were the disciplinarian at one time. And I can imagine that's, and especially a lot of stress and especially, retirement when it's like now you're in this new world and you're both home. And lots of adjustments. And I bet, and sadly that there is probably a high divorce rate on that. So another reason why we should be definitely praying for, military wives and their families. So I want to ask you, Kristi, because you've been writing for a long time, how, in a lot of these years you've been writing have been while you've been in the military, your family serving. How did you find time to write while raising a family?
Well, I will say that I actually started really focused, serious writing after my husband retired. So I didn't, while we were in, I blogged a little bit, but it was more to let people know kind of what was happening with us and where we were, and give them a place to find all of that. And then it started to transition into faith writing. And then once my husband retired and we had homeschooled all those years, so it was, I couldn't do it all. I'll put that out there. I couldn't.
Yeah.
So my focus was the kids and my husband and that first. And then after we moved to Oklahoma in retirement, the kids went off to a school and finished there. And then the door was open for me to focus on writing. The family was still first, but the writing was there and that gave me more time. So there are women who can do more all at once than what I could. I would just say recognize what God has called you to be capable of through and in Him, and then be okay with that. So if it's just a little bit, it's just a little bit, and that's okay. Save all of it, and then maybe down the road it'll be put together and it'll be used. And that's kind of what happened with me. Or if you're able to like throw open the doors and those floodgates and handle all of it at once, then go for it. You've been made to be able to do that. So I would just encourage women to figure out, what's God calling you to? Don't compare. Don't look around. Just look up.
Yeah.
What is He calling you to? And then just walk that path.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's such great advice. And I love that and we are all built differently and have different, lives going on. And like you, that you just, that the time that wasn't what God was calling you to do, but I hope that, I mean, I don't know if this is in your future, Kristi, either, but I really hope that people will, like even if it's journaling for themselves, while they're going through this, have it documented somewhere. Cause that's what I think of like, I'd love to, and I know those are some painful things that have happened, it's like, you may not want those documented, but it's like for us that don't know much about it, I would love to read more stories, from military members. And there may be, they're out there that I just don't know about, but I just think it's, anything we can do to raise the awareness of what really life is like. We just have no idea on this side of it. And we're just, we're so thankful and grateful, for your family service. And
but
it is so hard to understand. But I want to make sure that we definitely acknowledge that. And I know well, let me ask you this about your book, Kristi, what have you found? Because this is such a unique book, because it is designed for military wives, but it is, like I said, it's something that we can all take advantage of and know how to pray for military families. But I would love for you to share, because it is Book Marketing Mania. I'd love for you just to talk about what you have found, to be successful for you to get the word out about this book. Because I know, again, this is part of your writing that you've been blogging about for a while, but, now that the book is out and available at all the stores, what are you doing to get the word out?
Mhm. Well, pray.
Yeah.
That's first and foremost because this project, was God's and I was
Uh-huh.
invited to be a part of it. So I give credit where credit is due. I'm very grateful to be a part of it. We had a launch team that we started, and
Uh-huh.
I think I'm going to in the new year. So if people are interested, they might want to sign up on my email list so that they're aware of when the opportunity opens again. But, to have a group of women coming together praying for
Uh-huh.
30 days or a certain amount of days. Our launch team did for 30 days and it was such an amazing time to just pray. And there were military wives on there. There was a chaplain's wife. There were a military missionary, and then there were authors and civilians, and it was quite an eclectic mix of people
Yeah.
just coming together and sharing and praying and discussing. And so definitely be on the lookout for that. As well as, I've just been sharing through word of mouth. That actually has been the biggest one, because word of mouth, there end up being speaking opportunities, and the
Mhm.
women always are intrigued by the book at
Yeah.
those speaking opportunities, and always have great conversations with them about that. Fun little thing like a QR code sticker.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
sounds fun, but my goal is to get one in every 50 states since we
Uh-huh.
are military, right?
Yeah.
So if anybody's interested and they want their own little 4-inch by 4-inch QR
Mhm.
code to put somewhere public that they have permission,
Yeah.
mine's on the back of my van on the window. But let me know, email me and let me know. And my goal is again to get it to all 50 states. So
Oh, I
things
love that so much.
things like that, and then I would really encourage people to think about what the anonymous donor did with thinking of the military, and we mentioned earlier as well. If you're not sure what to do and you want to be a part of it, um, just the word of mouth got to this anonymous donor. And then they said, you know what, I want to do something. So let me share, in her case, it was 10 books.
Uh-huh.
And so they're going to go out. And so that, I think then that will get the books out even further to people. And then they start talking and they realize that these prayers are very, um, poignant. They're pinpoint to the needs of the military community. So if it's a guide that you need as a civilian, they're pinpoint and they give you really great examples. So, yeah. So that's kind of maybe a roundabout way about the marketing, and then
Uh-huh.
of course social media, but word of mouth has definitely been more. So just really getting the books out to the military community. And
Yeah.
then that has started the wheels going.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great idea. And I think, yeah, once you get it in your hands and start reading through it, it's really going to open your eyes. It's just such a great
Right.
awareness piece again for us civilians, but also, yeah, just to be aware of what we can pray for and how we can pray for it. And you just make it so simple for us, Christy, with your prayers in there.
Well,
Like if you're just like me, I'm just like, I don't even know what to say, but you can just read those prayers and know. But then at the same time, it's bringing that awareness to you of what, it's not just words. You're understanding the struggles that we
mhm,
go through. And at the time that we're recording this, we're about to come up on November. And I immediately thought of Veterans Day, Christy, but you also shared some other holidays that we don't know about. And I'd love for you to talk about that as well as, again, just, anything you can share about, making us aware of this all year long. So it's not just Memorial Day, it's not just Veterans Day. This truly is something
mhm.
going on, every day. We know that we should know that, there are men and women out there, fighting for our country and fighting for our freedom. But we have to remember there's also families behind here, fighting as
Right.
well. They're serving as well. And I think we sometimes forget that. So anything you want to share about that awareness as well as holidays specifically?
Absolutely. Well, November is Military Family Month. And with the holidays coming up right after that, or
Mhm.
even a part of that month, it's perfect because the holidays can be a really lonely time. Also, like, if you're buying gifts, well, how do you hide the gifts if, like in my case, the kids were homeschooled, so they were home all the time?
Yeah.
I didn't know how to get the stuff delivered so that
Yeah.
nobody knew what was coming, and that's kind of just a practical thing, but it's reality. So, don't forget them for the National Military Family Month, and then also it's Warrior Care Month, which there are some prayers in there for families that have faced a lot of, physical issues, through trauma, through war and that sort of thing. God brought alongside me. I actually have a friend. She's a real life friend who is also a mental health counselor who has a history that she worked on a military base and counseled military families. So she came alongside me with ideas and, fed into this as well. So every one of those prayers is based on somebody's story. It's real life. Those are real life things that they face. And so, being Military Family Month in November, and then the Warrior Care Month as well, and then of course Veterans Day for those who have transitioned out. It fits nicely to help be a support network for those who need a support network.
Yeah. And you were just talking through about the holidays. I was just thinking about, like you say, there's servicemen and women being called up for reserves, and that may be totally unexpected, right? They weren't even thinking that was going to happen. And as we enter the holiday season, I imagine that could be so difficult. That's definitely not what you had planned for your holidays. So, yeah, anything we can do to pray and support those families would be amazing. So, Kristi, this has been so good, and I can't wait to just share the word myself and do what I can to support this effort, because it's just such a beautiful book, but it's more the beautiful purpose of your heart behind it and what God has called you to do, that I'm just so thrilled to be even just a small little blip on the radar to support it.
Thank you, Kim. It's been an honor to be here and to be part with your listeners as well. And I hope that this is of service to them, but mostly to God, because He gets the glory.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Oh gosh, y'all, I can't say enough about Kristi's book, 101 Prayers for Military Wives, and I truly pray that you are able to get your hands on one to lead your own prayer time, or to gift a copy or two to a military family or a fellow prayer warrior, or even share it with your listeners, because you never know who might be in your audience. It's a military family that's, sacrificing so much for our country, and we want to give back to our listeners anytime we can. So thanks for tuning in to Book Marketing Mania today, and as always, I'll be there for you next episode to help you reach and serve your readers one podcast at a time. See you then.